Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello, it's Dr. Gemma, and this is episode 220 of the new series of the Cognitive Podcast. Can you believe it? 220 episodes, and I'm still calling it the new series, and yet it's newer than the first 220, I think it was 221 or 22. This episode is optimistically called Fly, Eagles, Fly, because I am a Philadelphia girl. As I record this on Sunday afternoon at 3:36 p.m., on February 9th, they're about to have the Super Bowl. Now, if you're an Eagles fan, you know what this means. It means this is the last good moment before the home team gets slammed because the Eagles are great at getting in the Super Bowl, and well, maybe we just have to be happy. It gives us something to party about in Philadelphia, you know? After they get into the Super Bowl, not always so good. But I was there for the time they did win it. It was an amazing thing. I'm used to the idea from the 1980s of the Pittsburgh Steelers hammering the Eagles into the ground. Now I'm more used to the Kansas City Chiefs doing it. But nonetheless, fly, Eagles, fly. And try to use both wings and eat a lot of good pasta before you take off. All right. Having said that, your comments are very welcome. You can comment either on the blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com or on our group on Ravelry. In the warm thanks department, I'd like to thank my community on Reddit, my community on the ground in the Santa Clarita Valley and the Antelope Valley, and most of all to my listeners from this podcast. I didn't do that in any particular order. I'm just grateful to all of you. Which leads me to thank our own Atlanta Nana for her generous donation to World Central Kitchen. I'm especially grateful for this because I think most of you don't realize that WCK is still on the ground here. That we still have first responders fighting hot spots. We still have some rescues going on. We still have people evacuated, hard to believe but true, around the Palisades fire. I think the people up in Altadena and the Eaton fire are mostly home, but if there's a home to go back to, I mean, that's a pretty big if right now. Because, yeah, the home may be there, but damage is not limited to simply burning to the ground. So we are still very reliant on World Central Kitchen here, and we're very, very grateful for them. And thank you, Atlanta Nana, for thinking of doing that. In the meantime, you may be wondering, hey, Gemma, what's on your hooks and needles? Well, nothing finished, but really, it's finished at February. Cross your fingers. The stash toss, I've got to finish something. It is at 16 in and 0 out. Why, you say? Well, we added those 4 skeins of Malabrigo Rios, which I think I mentioned last week, that I was alerted that there was a restock of the colors I need. I probably should have waited for a sale, but instead I said, let's just get it out of the way now before heaven knows what kind of crazy sets in, because between one thing and another here in the good old U.S., well, we have no idea what's going to happen to our prices, but the government in power says they're not working on lowering them. And that means they're going to go in another direction, doesn't it? Yes. All right, so I'm trying to bring up my colorways to a number where I could make a sweater out of them, predictably. Meanwhile, I haven't really done anything on the blueberry waffle socks, the 10 square bag, or the lakeside cardigan. Let's just get it off my chest right now. I haven't done anything on Vestuary 24, but Vestuary 25 is cooking. Now this is a petite knit pattern. It's a top-down vest. And I think it's called the Novice Slipover. You can see the link in the show notes, okay? It's a nice pattern. As you can see, it's top down and I'm past the armholes and the neckline, and I have joined the whole body. So now I'm just doing round and round and round and round in stockinette. I'm enjoying it immensely. I'm really enjoying the fact that now it's popcorn knitting. So I can knit it while I edit this podcast. I can knit it while I'm talking to friends on the phone. So hopefully it will clock right along. The neckline is very interesting. You do a rib for, I think it's 6 rows. And then you do a knit 1, slip 1 purlwise for 3 rows. And that actually makes the neckline fold over. And then you do, I think it's 3 more rows of knit 1, purl 1, rib. And what you get is this really nice fold over, thick, kind of fluffy neckline. And it falls right against where it should. So you're going to do a hemmed neckline. If you've never done this, it's very, very easy. You go to the inside of the neckline and you will see all the stitches you picked up. They will be standing out on the inside of the neckline. And so you run your needle through 1 stitch of the ribbing on the neckline and then 1 stitch of that raised stitching where you picked up the stitches to start the neckline, and you knit them together and it tacks it down very, very nicely. Makes a really, really nice neckline. This is a good one to know. This is a strange little pattern. She calls it a novice pattern, but she doesn't tell you how to do the ribbing on the armholes, picking up the stitches. She gives you relatively few things there. She gets the direction wrong when you're working your way down the straps, and you're supposed to be increasing by leaning stitches, make 1 left and make 1 right. As far as I could tell, she was getting those backwards. It would have looked kind of funky. I don't know what she was thinking. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. If you try this pattern, let me know. But to me, this was a really wonky pattern. It should be for a beginner, but no, not really. But it has a lot of good things in it. First of all, it's good just to have a top-down pattern where what you do is you start on the back, you cast on in the middle of the lower back, and you work your way upwards to what will be the neckline. And then you cast off in the middle, and you just do straps. And you do the straps, and you do them straight over the top, and then you increase. And now you're going down the armholes. And then you're knitting the front yoke. And then you just join it under the armholes, under the armpits. You just join it and you go round and round in a circle. And then you do the bottom ribbing, and then you can do the neck ribbing and the armhole ribbing. I decided to do them first because I decided to do them first because I'm working with hand spun yarn. And if I was going to run out of the colorway I like, which is just this plain natural wool sort of oatmeal color, I wanted to have any new yarn or new color that I added to come down at the base, at the ribbing. The reason is wherever you put that new color, if you have to do it, and I'm not sure if I have to, but wherever you put that, that's going to draw the eye of the viewer. So you have to kind of decide where would you like the viewer to look. And I thought about the ribbing and said, no, I think that'll just look a little too funky. And now that I'm thin, frankly, I don't mind having the eye drawn to my waistline at all. In fact, I'm rather fond of my waistline these days. So that's going very, very nicely. And it's making me realize that I just need to pull out the Vestiary 24, which is Malabrigo Rios in blue jeans, I believe. And I just need to do that and dig into that one and get it finished. That this really gave me a lot of confidence in Verve about doing the ribbing around the armholes and the neckline, just doing it as I know how to do it without being so dependent on reading every single step. I get a little too worked up when I'm doing those armholes and necklines. I get a little too tense about it. Meanwhile, the Romeo sweater is going swimmingly. Now, once you hit the yoke, it's about 50 rows, give or take a few. Because there are a few things like you can add German short rows, which I decided not to this time, but you can. And you have to delete some rows depending on the size you're making. However, I am now 30 rows into it. And there's a picture of it just at about row 21. And it is breathtaking. This is a beautiful pattern. I know it's breathtaking because I held it up to show my friend Nancy on our Zoom call this morning, and she literally went, "Oh, that's beautiful." It really is. I did a nice color choice with the Sedetza against the just stark plain white. It is really, really a handsome, handsome sweater. I was doing 1 row a day because the rows were 280 stitches, and I just get kind of burnt out on the color work with that many stitches. But this is very, very easy, even by color work standards, and yet you get this striking result. Now I'm in the upper row of hearts and flourishes, and I'm decreasing. So originally it's 20 stitches per pattern repeat. Now I believe I'm at 14 stitches per pattern repeat. 14 or 16, it's going considerably quicker. So I'm tending to do 1 row in the morning and 1 row in the evening. I do try to do this in daylight, as I also do when I'm picking up stitches for necklines on vestuaries. In the quilt squares, 10 more in process. We're pretty close. I should have finished at least 9 today, but my sewing machine jammed up, and I got a few there and then said I'm going to stop because I'm too frustrated with the machine because it was jamming up last night. I did a lot of untangling, and for some reason the thread keeps jumping off the thread path. I have to be honest, I think the biggest problem with my sewing machine is probably that it just needs a good servicing, needs a good oiling. Nonetheless, it is going beautifully, and I am heading towards 69 finished squares. And in my scrap collection, you would never even notice that I've done this many quilt squares. So we're going to have us a lot of strip quilts coming up. Dizzy Blondes. Well, believe it or not, I found a sample of Polworth wool from CFR 2010. Yes, it's 14 years old. So you can see it spun into a single on its bobbin on my EEW 6.1 there. Meanwhile, I did finish and I washed a skein of rainbow yarn. Now this was little samples that made, as a group, collectively, a rainbow from Redfish Dye Works. I can't even tell you how old this set was either, but it's been around for a while, 7 years at least. And when you spun these, you spin them out as one big single, and of course you've got a rainbow spectrum. So I triple plied it. So hopefully you will see that next week. It is hanging in my study drying. And meanwhile, I've got a silk camel hair mix from the very last Southern California stitches. This is from Pearly Shell Fiber Arts. You can see the tag and the raw fiber that I have pulled into strips, pre-drafted in other words. This stuff is getting into my sinuses, so I can do a little bit of it. Then I have to take aspirin because my sinuses are swelling and I'm getting a wild headache from it. I'm very much looking forward to getting through this. I've got 2 braids of this, one in purple and one in purple and rust, with of course the cream camel hair in the background. So, of course, I said, what on earth will I do with these? And decided that the only thing to do was to go to Lisa Souza, which is lisanit, all one word.com, and buy some fiber to go with them. So I got this beautiful superwash merino fiber, 2 4-ounce braids of it in the color Black Bowie Shadow, I believe it's called. And then I said, well, what the heck? And I ordered a pound of, I can't remember if I got it in BFL or in the superwash. I don't care. It's the same price for both. And it's in a greenish colorway whose name I don't remember. But don't worry, because it'll arrive and you will see it. And so these guys should keep me spinning for a while. I am deeply, deeply grateful to get the camel hair silk out of my stash, because I suspect it's got a lot to do with the sinus headaches I've had this year. It is beautiful stuff. It spins like butter. I mean, it's beautifully prepared and all that. But I really would like to get it plied into something and perhaps knit it into something. And I'm not going to knit it all by its lonesome into a shawl, for the simple reason that it is fairly short staple. Not the silk, but the camel hair. And it's getting up my nose, or I wouldn't have the sinus headache. So if I'm going to put this into anything, either I'm going to give it away, like triple ply it and give it away, which I'm not going to do. I don't want to handle it that much. Or I'm going to put it in a fairly tight twist with other fiber that coordinates with it and knit the H out of it into a sweater and keep it away from my face. And hopefully that will stop the camel hair from flying around. This is beautiful luxury stuff. I just happen to have an allergy. Okay, let's get on to a strategy. Well, all right. Here I sit in the United States, and things are getting a little strange around here, as you all know. And it's been an interesting week, let's put it that way. And I have to say, almost everybody I've encountered, colleagues, patients, friends, is stressing out over events lately. And I can't tackle all of the strategies that go with that in one episode. You'd be here all night. So if you're wondering why I'm talking about A but not talking about B as a strategy, it's because I'm trying to prioritize, so please be patient. The first thing is, yes, I believe we're Americans, and being American means you are politically active if you're at all a grown-up and responsible. However, if you keep on your social media and you're doom scrolling and you're interested, I don't care which side you think you're on, you're going to get, through the algorithms, just bombarded with stuff these weeks. So, I am setting a 5-minute timer for each social media app I use. I do not use many. My favorite one right now is Blue Sky, and I'm at drgemma@bluesky.com. But everybody gets 5 minutes at most. And I now read really selectively. There are some resources I trust there, but I'm trying to get them from elsewhere. So strategy number 1, 5 minutes per app on your doom scrolling. And apps that I used to read for pleasure, like Instagram, Facebook, no, it's no longer that much fun. I like Blue Sky because I have a lot of control over what I see. So 5-minute timer per app. Which also leads me to say, please don't use these for your news outlets. Please go to news outlets you trust, identify those, spend 5 minutes a day just skimming headlines, okay? And then there's malware. We have a lot of scammers. This is a good time to be a scammer. So one of the things I would tell you is, and this is not me, this is just a phone techie. Well, this is all the phone techies I trust. Let's Do This and Tech Girl Jen and a few others. And they're all saying the same thing. Every night you go and turn off every app on your tablets and your phone. Turn them off. Don't just leave them lying there and turn your phone off. Turn off all the apps and then turn your app or your tablet completely off so that you have to enter a password the next day to reboot it. Apparently this takes out a lot of malware. And sure, you should have all the antivirus stuff to protect them. But did I mention this is a good time to be a scammer? Yeah. So just turn everything off, empty your apps, and turn it off and reboot it at least once a day. And then I learned a new thing this week, and I was going to save it to next week, but I really think if you're in America, you should do it now. If you go into the show notes, you will see links for all of this. These are live links you can use. And you will also see 2 images from a group on Instagram that deals with credit safety. All right, so what am I talking about? Well, unfortunately, every American's social security number, it seems likely, has now been downloaded with all the accompanying personal information, like your mother's maiden name, which used to go with those ID checks. So you have to now think about this, about your personal information isn't safe, and that can be used for identity theft. So things you should do: 1, if you're an American, go to the Social Security Administration website, ssa.gov, and I don't believe I have this in the show notes, and just download all your information, because you want a record of where you were in case the whole site gets scrubbed. Because government websites that belong to the public are being scrubbed now, even though they belong to us. And so go get your Social Security Administration information, ssa.gov, download it, so at least you have proof that you've reached a certain level of Social Security paid in America. The other thing is you need to go to the major credit report providers and freeze your credit reports. Freeze your credit. This sounds horrible. As it turns out, I wish I had done this years ago, and if I had known about it, I probably would have. I think no matter what you think is going on in the government, you should be doing this anyway. And this is so easy, it's blindingly painful. It is so easy. So there's 3 major credit reporting places: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. The links are live in the show notes, and there's also 2 photos that show the original URLs I used to get to them, but then when I got to them, I saved the URL for the login. Each one of these is the same thing. It's very, very easy. You go to it, and they ask you for some identifying information, including the last 4 of your Social Security. One of them asks for my whole Social Security number. Why should I worry? It's already been stolen. But also, I mean, these people have it anyway, and I think these guys all talk to each other, because once I entered it in one, it was there in the others. It was kind of interesting, so it was my phone number. So anyway, I started with Equifax, and you just give them your name, your address, and on only one I had to give the whole SSI number, and I gave it. And then it says, oh, you can freeze your credit reporting. Now, this is really nice. It means nobody can pull a credit report on you except for a select few. I would guess that's people you already have loans with, like people who have the mortgage on your house if you have a live mortgage. If you're a renter, your landlord, I suspect they can still pull it. Anybody you have active debt with. I'm pretty happy because, well, I've been working at paying off my debt, so you can imagine where that goes in my head. Okay, and this means if you freeze your credit report, nobody can use your Social Security number to open a new bank account or a line of credit in your name. So nobody can get into your credit and use you to open an account for themselves. And that's why you want to do this. This takes 5 minutes, if that long. Really not. First time 5 minutes because you're figuring out what's going on. You make an account on each site. I do recommend that. I do recommend that you save your password for each site, that you use a complex password. They do double source, I'm saying that wrong, but you know what I mean, validation, so verification. They will send you a text or an email or whatever, or call you to validate after you put in a password. That's one step, and then they will confirm it with another form of verification. So I feel good about that. So it took 5 minutes on the first one for me. The other 2 took maybe 2 minutes. I didn't even know you could do this. I didn't even know you could have accounts with these people yourself. You could get them to give you copies of your credit report. But when you pull copies of your credit report, it will drive down your credit score with these people. They don't like it when you're using credit cards too much. And that's what pulling a credit report means. Somebody's thinking about giving you a credit line, which will lower your credit rating. All right. However, you can go to a group called annualcreditreport.com and get a free credit report. That link is also in the show notes, because once you freeze your accounts, you should go get a credit report on yourself. I don't think freezing your account will do it, because Experian sent me to Annual Credit Report, as did my source that you can see the photo of. However, it's easy to unfreeze your account. You can do it for free. You can do it for 5 minutes and refreeze it if you want to. But anyway, you should pull a copy of your credit report for free with annualcreditreport.com. Why are you doing that? You're going to look at everybody who's reading your credit reports. You want to make sure there's no fraudulent stuff there. If there is, you're going to report it to the credit agencies, say, hey, that wasn't me. So this is a pretty long strategy, but we're in that place right now. So let me summarize. Number 1, doom scrolling, 5 minutes per social media outlet per day at most. Identify who you trust for information and go to their sites for news. And then on your tablets and phone. Now, I have a lot of these because I work online. So this probably sounds a little bit rich girl, and I apologize, talk about a first world problem, but on your phone and your tablet, you turn it on every day. you clear out all the apps, you deactivate the apps. So you have no apps running in the background, and then you shut it down, restart or turn it off completely. And meanwhile, you should go and pull a copy of your credit report at annualcreditreport.com, and the links are in the show notes for this, and look at it to make sure there's nobody phony pulling your credit reports. And you should go to the 3 major credit sources, that is credit report sources, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and you should freeze the credit accounts there. And the sites are very, very helpful. It's very user-friendly. They will walk you through it, and they will answer all your questions. Meanwhile, I'm bike desking. I have not been out running in the wind. I could have. I just lost my mojo on that. But I am working on the bike desk for at least 45 minutes a day because I have to keep my legs going because I've got the Cupid Dash on February 16th. And you can see my upcoming runs in the show notes. On to the fluffy books. I am listening to and reading the book Calling. I'm just kind of bogged down in it. I'm just enjoying it. But I'm listening to so many books because I'm doing so much knitting. I am finishing the 4th of the Moomin books, which is Moomin Summer Madness. These books are amazing. I don't even know what to say about them. They're very reductionist ways of looking at common human problems. They're funny, they're sly, they're witty, they're philosophical, and you just have to read them. I don't always agree with the author's take on something, but I can always understand why she's saying it. And she is really kind of clever around how do normal people get by without resorting to bad behaviors or bad tricks. And I don't know how to say it any more than that. These books are just really great, and they're worth having a look at. In my struggle to get through Georgette Heyer, apparently I've gotten through most of the fun ones. I don't know. I finished The Foundling, and I liked The Foundling. I did. It took me a while to get into it, but of course, ostensibly The Foundling is this young, stupid, crazy girl who's wandering around, and our hero bumps into her on his travels, except she doesn't even show up for like the first quarter of the book. And you realize our hero is also a foundling. And he's the rich kid orphan. And she's the poor kid orphan. This book is as close as Heyer's ever going to get to social commentary, where you realize that both of them have been extraordinarily fortunate. And the poor girl is just a moron. But I think what Heyer is pointing out is you need people to teach you the ways of the world. And so the female poor girl foundling, she just has had nobody reliable in her life. And she takes nothing for granted that when her orphanage people, I don't know quite how we're supposed to understand the beginning of her life, when they tell her things, what she should and should not do, she's lived such a deprived life that she doesn't really see why she should trust them, why she shouldn't just try to get nice things. And meanwhile, you've got the rich guy, and he's figuring out how pampered he's been. It's a very interesting book. It rewards thought. Heyer really doesn't do social commentary in a way that is critical of our society. It's more like just listening to somebody recite the facts without trying to explore them with much bias. But it's a very interesting book, which is good because then I started on April Lady, which I simply hated. And I get what she's trying to do there, but I just don't find it amusing or funny. There are a few scenes that are funny and clever, but I just found the core situation a little too ugly. Heyer has a tolerance for the fact that extremely wealthy people gamble, and gamble hard in the Regency. And of course, she's always interested in the guys who don't have enough money or lose all their money to gambling. But she never takes you quite that far. But one of the sympathetic characters here who seems to learn absolutely nothing in the book is one of those. Our heroine seems to learn absolutely nothing in the book because she's focused on, does her husband have a mistress? And so can he ever really love her? And in the background, she's just doing stupid, painful things. So I can't say I really enjoyed April Lady. I'm listening to Bath Tangle. And again, Bath Tangle's more interesting. But the Core Lovers, this is kind of a weird redoing of Much Ado About Nothing, I think. And the core pair are just grouchy and arguing, except I must say in Shakespeare's play, Benedict is a very likable character. And actually, Beatrice is too, although she's kind of sour in the beginning, but you kind of understand why she is. The core couple here are just both bad-tempered types, and I didn't enjoy them that much. And of course, there's the shy little heroine. There is one interesting piece of social commentary where Hare actually does vent opinions, and that is the second female lead is married when she's very young against her will to a wealthy older man who's very nice to her. But she begins slowly, after she's widowed unexpectedly, to explore the perspective that goes with being in her position. And she's trying not to say anything awful about her dead husband. She is appreciative of the fact he has a reason he marries so young. He needs an heir desperately. And he is kind to her. She doesn't produce one. And he's still kind to her. And that's nice. That could have gone so Henry VIII. I can't tell you if you know your history of England. But she also realizes that this wasn't appropriate. That she was kind of sold into a wealthy marriage. And so it is very interesting as she begins to think about her experience, about how this happened to her. And that's the best part of Bath Tangle for me. Something I really like, Dr. John, I think it's an I don't think it's an L, I can't tell in the typescript they use, but he posted a link tree of government-authorized medical websites for the public that is basically from the Canadian government because the U.S. government is shutting those down and scrubbing them. Now, it let a little bit of the CDC come back this week, and I guess that's supposed to make us happy, but they're scrubbing stuff on homosexuality and transgender people. And yeah, I got nothing. What do you want me to say? That they're citizens and they're humans. I got nothing. Yeah. Anyway, so if you need to see medical information, please hit that link in the show notes for Dr. John I's link tree of government-authorized Canadian medical websites with information for consumers. I continue to carry the link to Robert Reich's Substack because I find him a very good source of information. Put a lid on it. We're still in the tea tastings. Everybody feeling a little grim. Fly, eagles, fly, for love of heaven. I hope you're not losing right now. Anyway, day 20 of the Plum Deluxe tea tasting, day 20 of their advent calendar for herbal teas. Busy holiday morning, no. It's okay. It's very, 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 very fruity. It is honeybush tea, mango pieces, lemon, lime, orange, and grapefruit essences. No, I really can see what they're trying to do there. And I have to admit, as a black tea, this might be a lot more lovable. It overwhelms the honeybush. Like, it's a red tea, so to speak. It's a rooibos. It just doesn't work. It tries. Don't drink it cold. Don't drink it lukewarm. It's at its best when it's hot. First time I drank it, I've had both bags. I liked it okay. Second time I drank it, it was lukewarm. It has a nice scent to it, but the flavor just doesn't seem to hold up as well. There are quite a few teas in this calendar that are like this, that are fruit stuff up against a rooibos, a green rooibos or a honeybush. And this one of all of them was probably my least favorite. None of them are bad. Some of them are quite delightful. Again, I'm not the drinker of fruity teas, although I have to admit I like fruit flavoring against a dark black tea. I like more body in the tea when it's that fruity. However, day 20, it's okay. Day 21, one of my favorites, candy cane herbal. This is green rooibos, peppermint, safflower, and peppermint essence. Look, this stuff is great. It's a really fine peppermint tea. And it's a little sweeter than just straight up peppermint. I don't know what safflower does for it, but they don't use sugar in their tea. So whatever they're doing here, I don't know. But last year when the calendar ran out, I ordered a ton of this stuff from Plum Deluxe. This is definitely one of my favorites all time. It's a great herbal. It's a great after dinner tea. It's got simply a lovely fragrance to it. I just love it. On to the blather. Well, there isn't a lot that you haven't already heard. That, you know, I'm on Blue Sky's Dr. Gemma, and I'm trying to get away, frankly, from the meta-based platforms. I don't feel real paranoid about this yet. I have the doubtful privilege, unknown to most Americans. I have lived in totalitarian countries for brief periods of time, and I have seen how bad it can get. I'm just going to put it that way. And I don't think Americans get that. I think Americans are pretty naive about this. So, you know, right now I think it serves the billionaires if we're all on the billionaires' platforms. And I don't think they have a lot of reasons to cut it, but I don't know where we go from here. I don't know. I'm not thrilled about some of the directions we've taken lately. So I just think reducing internet presence is a great idea. And at the same time, I'm trying not to jump into unqualified paranoia here. However, I do want to retire, and that's always been my goal when I retired, is to divorce myself from the internet. I feel like I spend way too much time on the internet. Now, I happen to appreciate the value of the various cloud services. They certainly make electronic health records and medical records very possible. They also make them vulnerable to hacking, as we found out last February when a major clearinghouse for billing, basically all our medical information, got hacked by another country. Okay, so this is why I think that we have this kind of questionable blessing in the form of the cloud. It makes life a lot easier, but it can also make life much more complex and make us more vulnerable to hacking. So, you know, without going off the deep end of conspiracy theory and paranoia, I want to say that to me it seems like now as much as ever, seems like a really good time to just get your property off the cloud, to get it onto private stuff, onto your own servers or your own backup system. So I'm still doing that. I did finish downloading 11 pages of Ravelry stuff. Whoa, baby, thank you, Ravelry, for making it that easy. And I'm keeping them up there. I mean, it's nice that they're on Ravelry, and I'm appreciative of Ravelry. I just decided these are my properties, these patterns that are sitting in my library, the ones that are Ravelry available downloads. So I downloaded them all and stored them. And I feel really happy about that. I feel like, okay, you know what? I learned a few things. One thing I learned, I have patterns for everything I want to make. There may be new patterns I want to explore, new color work, blah, blah, blah. But in terms of all the skills, I've got them. I do entrelac. I know how to do Fair Isle. I know how to design Fair Isle. I know how to do the various color work options and patterns. I know how to do multicolor, multi-stranded. I know how to do blocks of single color in the middle of stuff. I've done all the stuff. And I have a lot of really great classic patterns that I could cheerfully work on in knitting and crochet for the rest of my life. And that was a great lesson that I don't really need to buy new patterns. I don't need to buy new pattern books. I can, and that's nice, but I pretty much have what I'm going to need. The same is true about my quilting library, that I've been working on transferring my quilting library and my crocheting library to document form and scanning them in and storing them. So this is really nice. One of my goals when I decide to stop working full-time, we plan to move, and so I'm trying to reduce the load that we're going to carry to our next home because moving is so prohibitively expensive, no matter how you do it. So I'm really just trying to get rid of as many books and papers as I can. So I have to say that's going really, really well, getting everything onto digital. It's true, I'm up to 5, count them, 5 Kindle readers, and I love them. And every time I'm looking at them now, it's 5 inches wide by about 6 inches or 7 inches tall. And that's going to carry, well, the one Kindle I'm working on filling now is not half full, and it has, I think it's got something like 800 things on it in terms of it's got some Audible books, it's got documents, patterns, and it's flyers, leaflets, training materials, and it's got ebooks. And that's only one, and that's only half full, and I've got 5 of these puppies. I grant you 3 of them are full, 2 of them I'm still filling. So this is amazing, and I'm having a great time doing this. I meant to only do this twice a year, as you may remember, in July or June when I take a week off, and in December for Romuald. But I've just gotten into doing it this week because I'm not sitting around messing around on the internet. So I suddenly have a lot of free time, which is why I'm leaping forward on all the knitting and stuff. Okay, meanwhile, I continue to work on my larger this is one of my larger projects I just described to you from Romuald. And I'm toying around, I'm taking notes for a book, because one too many people this week said, you need to write a book on X. So we'll see how that goes. But you know this, I'm always working on a book and telling you that, and then it goes away forever. And finally, the question that I just keep getting in my face: politics in therapy sessions. No, guys, no. When you have a stressful week politically, people are going to come in and talk about politics. And it can be part of therapy, but it's a kind of limited thing. Therapy is always, if you're doing what I do, I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist, okay? So I'm not a talk therapist. And if I was a talk therapist, I'd be a little more worried about that because people really feel like they need to talk about their politics. Now, even if they have my politics, I find it deeply unsettling and unpleasant because it's not therapy, okay? I'm a cog-B therapist. Therapy is, what are my skills for managing anxiety? What are my skills for managing distress in the moment? If you're distressed by politics, one of the skills is distract yourself with something else. Don't sit there and talk endlessly about it to me. That won't get you anywhere. But this keeps coming up, and I sort of want to say, politics are important. I think we all need to participate in them, particularly now in America. And we need to have, some sort of place where we see ourselves being active in our politics. But one thing I would tell you, first of all, if your politics are getting to you, find the providers on like Instagram, on the social media channels that give you good news as well. Be careful not to have nothing but bad news. Now you can hear right away, I did not say anything about what politics you should believe. I simply said, if you are getting upset by A, here is strategy A1 to manage A. That's what therapy is like, okay? So try to keep in mind, if you go to therapy and you try to go on and on about politics, if your therapist knows what they're doing, they're actually going to stop you because that can be countertherapeutic. That can make you worse. You're just obsessing over what upsets you. That makes you unhappy. It releases corticosteroids into your body. It poisons you, basically. It can give you a heart attack in slow motion over time. You have to manage your stress. Okay, so I don't mean to sound like little naive Susie Sunshine, but talking about politics, go do what you can do about politics. That's the best therapy can offer you. If you want a certain point of view to win out, you have to find a group of people who agree with you and you have to get active together. But that isn't going to happen in your therapy session. Instead, what I would tell you as a therapist myself, as a psychologist, you have to focus on what you can do. And you have to be careful because a lot of people want you to feel helpless and they will just bombard you with quote unquote evidence of your helplessness. And they're trying to make you feel helpless, okay? So as a psychologist, I'm just going to tell you, no, you don't take your politics into a therapy session. You will. I mean, it happens and it's okay. It's not like I'm saying to my patients, bad patient, no cookie. It's more, tell me about the effect that has on you. How are you doing when you talk about this, when you think about this so much? What's the effect in your body? What's the feeling behind it? And then we talk about, you can't allow yourself to have that feeling. It'll overwhelm you. And so we talk about, can you find actions you can take, okay? Meanwhile, I continue to carry the link of vaccine information sheets for parents. These were from the Center for Disease Control website. I don't know if they've been restored. I don't care. there is a link to an independent website that preserved those. I just think it's important that parents especially have access information about vaccine schedules. You can see a lovely picture in the show notes of the farm in the mist. That's what our weather has been like. We've been getting rain and mist. I'm so grateful. Yeah, I'm not in an area that has to worry about mudslides after these fires. So I'm very grateful. You can also see our lovely plastic PVC watering system in the ground there. My boys are digging it out and repairing it, which is making me so happy. You can see, of course, the community resources, the books I've used, my resources for purchase that support my knitting, etc. The skills and techniques list that I like. Everybody I buy from, including Lisa Knits and any other dyer who supported us, they are in this list of resources. You can see my link tree, which is more about my schedule. You can see the calendar for the Santa Clarita Valley knitting and crocheting groups and craft groups. You can see the calendar with links for all the races I have optimistically signed up for. By the way, my son is working on running a half marathon. He's up to 9 miles. Glad I'm sitting down. Finally, Minerva gets the last word. The last word is, it's all about her. You can see her lying there. I spun all that leftover fiber from Morro Bay Fleece Works, and I had it on the floor. I was sorting it into skeins after I washed it and labeled it. And you can also see part of the vest for Vestuary 25, and I had it all neatly laid out on the floor, and then thought, oh my God, what if she goes in there and tries to chew on it? Instead, she's been sleeping on it. This has encouraged me to put some of it in a yarn bowl. I just worry she's going to wake up and want to do a little snacky, but so far so good. But Minerva says, surely it's all about her. It's all about me, she says. Surely if you spun, that was meant to give me a bed, as opposed to that beautiful store-bought bed that she won't touch, that's still lying in her favorite corner. And now that's not her favorite corner. She's lying on the carpet, huddled up against my dusty old bag for one of my spinning wheels. But Minerva understands that everything really is about her. That's why house cats are, that they have worked out all their problems with financial stuff. If they've made it into a house cat life, they know that they've worked it all out. So it's all about her. Everything I do, she's just a step ahead of me on that. Meanwhile, remember, we are part of a community, and when we support the well-being of the community, we are supporting the well-being of the individual and our individual rights. Having said that, everybody remember, go get all your vaccines, go take care of your health. It's horrible here in terms of, we've got norovirus and COVID and several types of flu and 2 types of cold. Yeah, go get all your shots, guys. Seriously, take care of yourself. I'm really just staying indoors a lot right now, and I'm perfectly happy with it, except when I get camel hair up my sinuses. But in the meantime, please, everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.